Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, where we look at the highs and the lows for the weekend just passed in the Premier League. But the season is now past, so we're going to surmise your team's campaign by ranking them from A star to F. And joining me to work our way through said rankings, it's Zach Chelab, it's Joseph Tomlinson. What a way to close out the season. Zach, how was your weekend?
In comparison, pretty boring. Didn't really get up too much, but I did win a decent amount of money yesterday, so it got improved.
So, were you involved in Joe Tomlinson's bets that he posted
indeed.
in the group?
Yeah,
okay.
all year we've put £2 in each week to do a £10 or £12 bet on a bunch of scores, and I sent the message because we hadn't done it for a past few weeks. I was like, lads, last one we should probably do it, and it came in.
Match week 38. Celebrate good times. Joe, what are you doing with your winnings?
Yeah, well, let's be clear. It was a £2,000 win as well. So it wasn't just a win. It's a £2,000 win off a £10 bet, which is very, very delightful. I'll be spending that on festivals and nights out during the summer, almost definitely. But yeah, absolutely delightful weekend. I'm not going to lie. Saw my parents for the first time in 8 months. Won £2,000 on Accra, and Man United finished second. Absolutely beautiful. What about you?
I had a really good Sunday roast from Ganley's in Morden. Shout out Ganley's, great Irish bar.
This is not a paid
Not
promotion.
on commission, but yeah, I would recommend it highly. So, you know, we're all winners here. Zach's going to buy 6 new Patter t-shirts with his winnings. You're going to get 9 more bucket hats, and I've had a great Sunday roast. So what a way to start the show. Okay, I explained the concept at the start. Let's just jump straight in. Let's work our way down, you know, the actual rankings as they were posted, starting with Manchester City. Gents, a fairly easy one. Can we go anywhere else other than A star for the citizens this campaign, Joseph?
No, got to be A star for me. Absolutely sensational turnaround, given that they were 8th on Christmas Day, of course, and still have every shot of winning a European treble, even though it's not the proper treble, because they, of course, lost out on the FA Cup. They could still win a European treble. So, yeah, A star, very simple for me. Superb from Pep.
Yeah, I mean, any negatives, Zach, from this season? Maybe replacing Sergio Aguero? That's going to be a little bit of a head-scratcher come the summer. But even then, he didn't rack up that many minutes, did he?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they essentially won it without him anyway. He wasn't that important for them. It was quite some very sad scenes yesterday, actually. Pep Guardiola getting emotional and him obviously getting emotional leaving. But he seemed like he enjoyed his send-off. It was good that the fans were there as well for his last game. Yeah, I mean, the only other kind of negative you say is they had a poor start to the season, but overall it didn't really affect them too much, and they smashed it.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of work to do in the transfer market. Obviously, there has been rumblings that they might make a move for Harry Kane, which would make them a sickening prospect next campaign. And also, I think the only real position we've sounded out as a chink in their armour is left-back. Zinchenko deputised there very, very well, but when he's been rotated with Mendy, they have looked more vulnerable down that left-hand side. So a left-back is something they may want to think about. Get your suggestions in the comments below. A star then. Let's move on to Manchester United, but not before we actually throw over to Pep Guardiola. Like Zach said, he got very emotional. It was a little bit uncharacteristic, and it's just, you know, things we like to see.
Isn't a special person for all that.
You're not having second thoughts, are you, Pep?
He's so nice. He's so nice.
Is it because of the human being as well as the footballer?
Yeah, he helped me a lot. That's so good.
Manchester United then. So ended the season with that 2-1 victory over Wolves. The highest points per game tally, Joseph, since the 2012-13 season, which was, of course, Fergie's last campaign. A Europa League final. And you've got the 3rd youngest squad in the Premier League to boot. So it's all shaping up rather nicely, despite my insistence, you know, on every Sunday vibes that you're one of the most boring teams to watch this season. The Were match is where you're explosive. Cavani's committed his future to the club. So, firstly, give me your ranking, and then secondly, give me your outlook.
Yeah, I think I'll give United an A. I don't think anybody And they're lying if they said they had Manchester United finishing second in their pre-season predictions. And I think most Man United fans would absolutely snap your hand off to finish second with an improved performance on last year. I think 8 points better off than last season and in a Europa League final. Bit of a disappointment in the cup competitions, obviously crashing out in the Carabao Cup semi-final. The FA Cup was at the quarter-final stage as well on what was quite a desirable side of the draw. Let's put it that way. But yeah, very positive season for Manchester United if they win the Europa League. If not, it probably drops down to an A- for me.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think you covered the negatives pretty well there as well. Of course, a lot of draws in there for Manchester United.
Yeah.
I think some of those fears and concerns maybe...
Big summer as well. It's a big summer coming up for Manchester United. They've got to get it right because last season was not a good summer.
You were unbeaten away as well, weren't you?
For the entire season,
campaign, which is really impressive. That's
yeah.
So impressive.
And nice that when Bruno Fernandes' form started to wane, obviously Edison Cavani came good. He's committed himself to the club run of the year. I think without him, the summer would have been much more problematic because not only are you signing a right winger, maybe a centre half, maybe a CDM or a sitting midfielder as well, but you're going after someone that's capable of scoring 15 plus goals and maybe who's happy to come in on a rotational basis. Zach, let's move on to Liverpool. What are you giving them, big man?
You know what? I think the best way I can compare Liverpool is imagine they did their mocks, all right, halfway through the year, and they failed everything. It's bad. It's really bad. Like
sound like you're speaking from experience there, mate.
Yeah, it wasn't so good. F, D, and then in the last couple of weeks they've revised so much and they've been brilliant and they've managed to come out. They've managed to come out and get a B. Like that's where I think they are today because obviously it was really bad. They had massive injuries all over the pitch. Their best player, arguably the best centre back in the world, Van Dijk, got injured. And then then the last 10 games, things have gone their way. Obviously, Chelsea beating Leicester dropping points. But they did what they needed to do. The last 10 games they went unbeaten, finished third. They finished third in the league, which just wasn't something that people were thinking about 10 games ago. I think they were like 8th in the league. So it's really, really impressive. Obviously, they've finished 17 points off of Manchester City, which is not what they want to be doing after last year's success. But they've had so many injuries to so many key players, and yeah. So I think a solid B is a pretty good score considering just a couple of weeks ago they were probably on a D or an E. So yeah, I think Liverpool fans are probably buzzing with the way the season's ended, and yeah, I would be happy with that.
I like the analogy. You went around the houses with it, but finished strongly. Like Liverpool, you're right. They deserve a lot of credit for that. And that just shows you, the mindset under Jurgen Klopp. Despite the fact, things were going very wrong for them. Great pedigree, great perseverance, and thoroughly deserved their place in the Champions League. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a fan that would say that they weren't the third or fourth best side, despite that rocky patch of 6 home losses. Joseph, anything to add to Liverpool? Of course, Wijnaldum is departing. They're still not out of the woods with their injuries.
I agree with Zach. I think around about a B is about right if you look at the context given the injuries and across the course of the season. But I think if you said to Liverpool fans, you're going to finish 30 points worse off than you were last season at the start of the campaign, they probably wouldn't be giving themselves a B. They'd probably give themselves significantly lower than that. However, with the context, I agree. I think superb end to the season. So, yeah, a B I think we'll give them.
Okay, yeah, they crash out the Champions League in disappointing fashion, didn't they, to a bang average Real Madrid side as well. I think B is fair. Zach, big man, Chelsea, ecstatic. Mixed emotions probably for you on the last day because, of course, I didn't watch the game, but pretty poor performance against Aston Villa.
Want us to bet though, mate, that day because I put Villa on the ticket, didn't I? So
didn't realise that either before the game.
So you got over the line, Jalab. What was your prevailing emotion, and what would you give them, your boys?
I think a low B/high C. To be quite honest, obviously spending £200 million in the summer is a lot of money, and for it to come to the last day of the season that you've guaranteed Champions League football, especially when so many times there've been occasions where we could have made it sure it was in our own hands by winning games that we've dominated and gone on to lose. I understand there's been a lot of kind of ups and downs throughout the season. Obviously there was that patchy bit when when just before Lampard left, and I remember we lost to that last game, or second last game, losing to Leicester City, and it wasn't good at all. And then fast forward a couple of months, and we lose Aston Villa on the last day of the season. So, but there's definitely been improvements in the squad. The main issue is, and I'm sorry, but this just can't happen. You can't. Your top goal scorer cannot be a penalty taker who scores 7 in a season.
That's nuts, man.
And like, if anything, it's impressive that they've got Champions League football from that. But it's also a bit shocking that we've had to rely on. Well, we haven't had anyone to rely on realistically, or like the goals have been spread out through the group. And then the second top goal scorer is Tammy Abraham, who hasn't played for the past 5 months. So that is an issue that needs to get fixed in the summer, and hopefully with the whole pre-season and all that kind of under his belt, Thomas Tuchel can get that to happen and to be more clinical. Because Chelsea are creating a lot of chances, they're just wasting all of them, and that's kind of been the same thing as for the last 2 years. Defensively, they've been much better this year, and that was under Lampard too. They were better than they were the previous year, but also under Tuchel, it's been fantastically much improved. So yeah, I think a low B, high C is probably just about right. And obviously, if they've got to a Champions League final, if they win the Champions League, then screw it, it's an A. to be quite honest. But yeah, that's all I think about Chelsea.
I don't know about you, Tomlinson, but I'm almost ranking Chelsea in my head on the job that Tuchel's done since he's come in. There's almost a clean break there with Lampard, which is kind of why I'd go B+. I think yours is probably fair over the course of the season. But Tuchel's 62% win ratio, the fact they were 10th when he arrived. I know they did lose 3 of their final 4 games, so it could have been out of their hands. But, ultimately it wasn't. And yeah, the financial ramifications for not making the Champions League would have been huge. But now you can look forward to planning your optimum summer, like you said, Zach. Like if you weren't going to get Champions League, maybe you could have waved goodbye to Haaland. I know you could have thrown a bunch of money at him and hopefully it would have stuck. But
no chance. Yeah,
that might not have been the case.
Yeah.
But now the outlook's much more positive. So I'd actually go B+. What are you saying, Tomlinson?
Yeah, I don't think I'd go B+ just over the course of the entire season. I think I agree under Tuchel they've been sensational, so definitely a B+ under Tuchel, but you've got to take into account the first few months as well. So yeah, I'll give them I'll just give them a flat B. I think Chelsea absolutely fine. If they win the Champions League, then obviously they're getting bumped right up.
Yes, and here we have it, the probably most contentious entry on the list. I get the sense we may disagree. Just owing to the different vibes in the WhatsApp groups and on our various timelines. But Leicester City in 5th. I want to hear what you boys have to say before my diatribe. But 5th place again, won the FA Cup for the first time in the club's history. Improved their points all last season by 4 points, but ultimately missed out after being in an advantageous position, let's say, Joe.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be too far apart here. Like, I think I'll maybe say B, somewhere in and around the B region. I'm not entirely sure whether I'd give them a B+. I think I probably would have given them an A had they finished in the top 4, to be honest with you. But having spent more time in the top 4 than any team in the league over the last 2 seasons, I think it was 224 days, wasn't it, this season? I think it's extremely disappointing to finish outside of it. Now, I know that the FA Cup is a huge trophy, and Leicester fans probably would have taken winning the FA Cup if it meant missing out on the Champions League.
For sure.
But the financial benefits and not having to play in the Europa League are so huge for a club like Leicester City. So I think it hasn't been disappointing because you've improved on last season as well, but it's just not quite there. So I think I'll just give them a flat B.
What are you saying, Deej?
Yeah, I think I agree with Jay. I could maybe argue a B+ because of the FA Cup win, obviously, and that would actually be a very interesting conversation between Leicester City fans. Would they have rather have won the FA Cup and not get top 4, or get top 4 and not win the FA Cup? And maybe financially, actually getting top 4 would have been better, getting into the Champions League. But I mean, that's a conversation for another day, to be honest. But yeah, I'd say a B. It's rough because they've done so well, and again, they've also had to deal with a lot of injuries too to a lot of key players. Obviously, if Johnny Evans doesn't get injured several times, it could have been a completely different story. Maddison was out for a large period. Jamie Vardy obviously didn't score a goal until the Spurs game. recently for months. So yeah, they've also had to deal with quite a few
Harvey Barnes,
blocks.
James Justin.
Yeah, exactly. The list can go on. Fofana in the last game, bless him. And so yeah, I'd say a B's pretty solid, and I can maybe see a B plus.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think quite reasonable from you boys then, actually. But I mean, only 3 players, quite shocking, started more than 30 games in a season for them, and that was Kaspar Vardy and Yuri Tielemans, the marathon man, which is a pretty sickening fitness record when you break it down in that sense. And I was looking, I don't want to mention names, but at various players who finished on the pitch against Tottenham Hotspur, and I was thinking, you're really not of the level, to push Leicester into those Champions League berths. And I think the squad maybe needs a slightly bigger refresh than people are anticipating. Because there's players that have improved under Rodgers, or players that have done very well, but perhaps hit a ceiling when it comes to just getting Leicester over the line. And I do sympathise with them after losing, like you said, it's just key components of their side time after time for the whole season. I think Sionchu was even injured for the first 10 games. I don't think he started any more than 21, 22 games as well. We didn't even mention him. What about the prospect of selling James Maddison to fund a rebuild? It may have just been paper chatter, but I had a bit of a debate when I was at Urban Golf on Saturday with some chums about the merits of selling him for between 50 and 60, if that's going to get you 2 to 3,
I just don't see, where does he go? Who pays that for him?
He was linked with Chelsea, obviously, who are going to play 8 attacking midfielders next season.
Just not going to get in over Mason Mount, though.
I mean, in a theoretical sense that they could find a buyer, then with the history of their recruitment, you trust them to do well. You trust them to be able to spend that money on two, maybe 3 players to help take them to the next level. But
you can't see a buyer. Everybody's set for number 10s, aren't they? Totally set in that number 10 role.
Unless Arsenal are suddenly having a lot of money, but even then, why would he move to Arsenal?
Why would he move there? Yeah,
not in Europe and stuff like that.
I suppose it's not just a question who's set for number 10s as well. It's who's going to gamble on a guy that's looking increasingly unreliable fitness wise. Anyway, I'd give them a B+. Let's move on to West Ham, because we want to keep this quite short and sweet, don't we?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to quickly evolve into an episode of Sunday Vibes. West Ham, let's go. I'm going to go A, boys. What are we saying? Joseph, positives, negatives?
I think it's got to be an A- for me. I think this has got to be the only. What did I give Man City an A*? I've got to give West Ham an A*. I think to go from, where did they finish last year? 17th, was it?
Yeah,
I think they finished last year, battling relegation, to go to 6th in the Premier League. Absolutely sensational turnaround from David Moyes, especially given at the start of the season there was so much negativity around them. The summer wasn't particularly great, I didn't think at the time. I remember saying and tweeting that I just can't see them winning any of their first 7 games. And
they did lose their first 2.
They did lose their first 2, but they have been sensational since that point. Bought in Jesse Lingard, that's worked out so well. Kafal's worked out brilliantly. The midfield duo of Souček and Rice is working perfectly. Even the likes of Craig Dawson came up trumps, and I think it's one of their highest ever Premier League finishes. So I think in terms of single seasons, this has been absolutely unreal for West Ham to get European football. A* for me.
Okay, I like that. I do think we should be judging these scores, tempering these scores with how well they've outperformed their expectations from the start of the season. And in that sense, I do agree that who could begrudge West Ham an A*? I'm going to stick with my A. Highest points haul in the Premier League, I think ever, and their highest league position since 1999. So I don't think too controversial. You've gone maximum score there, Joe. What would you give them, Zach?
I'm along the same lines. A+, A* seems that's probably the same thing. So I've never really got an A*, so how would I know? But yeah, no, they compared to what the expectations were at the beginning of the season, how it's ended has been fantastic. The questions over how much they're going to have to get paid for Jesse Lingard come in now. The big thing for them from here on is trying to take this great season and improve on it. What will Declan Rice be there next season? I probably assume so, unless realistic Chelsea or United coming with an outrageous offer. Keeping him, maybe getting a striker in during the summer. Antonio's been has been great, but Can you rely on him for another season? I'm not so sure. So yeah, I agree. They've outperformed every expectation at the beginning of the season, and fair play to them as well. They deserved it. They've not kind of been lucky. They've played really good football as well, and been fun to watch. So yeah, I think definitely A+.
Oh my god, the weather, by the way. What's just happened last 5 minutes? My lighting is up and down. It's gone from bright sunshine to thunder outside.
I love that. I mean, let's move. If we're going to...
Maybe foretelling for West Ham season next year.
A bit of pathetic fallacy then going into the Tottenham Hotspur section because, they quickly went from sunny to tempestuous, didn't they? I know they beat Leicester 4-2 on the last day, but if they hadn't won the last day, they would have been leapfrogged by Arsenal, which is unthinkable halfway through the season. Yes, Kane won the Golden Boot. I think he finished as the top assister as well. Yeah, Gareth Bale had a nice last hurrah if he doesn't return. That's 13 goals and assists for him in 10 Premier League starts, which makes 10 Premier League starts seem absolutely farcical. Only blemishes the Jose era even further at this point. But the real negative here, Joe, and I don't think there's an overwhelming amount of positives, there's no outstanding managerial candidate to take them forward. I think the best managers just have jobs, don't they? Rodgers has committed himself to Leicester. Who else is there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk over the rain because it is going to be loud on my mic, I'm pretty sure. But I totally agree. The sacking of Jose Mourinho, we were all for it. We didn't agree with the timing necessarily, but we said, look, he needs to move on. But the options in the market are so incredibly limited now. It doesn't look like they're going to go for Nuno. That's been kind of poo-pooed by The Athletic now, hasn't it? I think Tottenham... D- territory. I think it's been a horrendous season for them. And if Harry Kane leaves, we may as well chuck this down to an F.
I agree. In a strange turn of fate, if they were to get Graham Potter, I think that'd be a much more progressive appointment than the fans could have anticipated had they been able to pursue a big name like Allegri that might not have been the right fit for them. So maybe a bit of serendipity there. Who knows? I'm just being positive. Shout out to Snelling. Another depressing season for them. I'll tell you after. Right, Arsenal. I've gone D+. What about you, boys?
I think that's kind. D+.
Go on, Joe. Come in with your rationale then.
Arsenal finishing 8th in the Premier League, crashing out of the Europa League in the manner they did. I know that they've been solid since Christmas. If I hear one more Arsenal fan say, "I went second in the form table since Christmas" or whatever, I'll be even more irritated. And obviously, Nicolas Pepe's finished the season strong, but I think when we started the season, which is kind of where I'm basing most of this judgment on, when we started the season, we were talking about Arsenal having a really good feel-good factor around the club. Mikel Arteta's just won the FA Cup. He's won the Community Shield. We were talking about Arsenal challenging top 4, and they've finished 8th. I know they've finished 8th, just 6 points off the top 4, but it's been an unbelievably disappointing season for me. I think D- same territory as Tottenham.
Is that what you're saying?
I said E, actually. I was just thinking, I think that might be a little bit too harsh. But yeah, I think D is about right. They kind of got all the targets they wanted this summer. Thomas Partey, they were talking about him fantastically. Came in, been okay. He has had injuries as well, that's fair enough. Martin Odegaard came in January, hasn't really done much, to be quite honest. But there are some positives, right? Like Emile Smith-Rowe had a really good debut season. Saka, again, has been fantastic. Who's the other youngster that was... and Martinelli hasn't really played so much, to be quite honest. But then there's been disappointments, right? They gave Aubameyang a £300,000 a week contract, and he's not stepped up throughout the season when you've needed him to, especially. Obviously, they've had good results. They've beaten some of the big boys, but they've really struggled against some of the lower teams. And look, I know they've not got any European football next year, but that actually might be a good thing. Focus domestically, put all your efforts domestically on the league, maybe a good cup run and kind of you not have to play every Thursday and getting tired for kind of pointless games per se. So it could be a positive actually for next season. I know that's kind of at times helped Chelsea when we've not kind of qualified and we've been going for a rough patch. Yeah. So it
doesn't help if your squad's a bit of a state, does it? Like exactly, fine being in those competitions if you're in a position to rotate and your strongest 11, but that's not the case for Arteta throughout the course of the season. And his defence has been consistently good, attack very mid-table. So at least I think for Mikel Arteta, he knows where the problems lie, and he was able to address that at the end of the season in quite convincing fashion. It's just that start was so horrific.
Is he going to be able to address it in the summer, though? I think it's a massive summer for Arsenal's recruitment department. It's such a huge summer for Arsenal's recruitment department, and I'm not sure how much budget they've got.
But I think the emergence of Smith Rowe, just having an attacking midfielder in the final half of the season, was so big for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Even if he just stays fit, even if he improves, I think that's going to be a huge factor.
And he will. He's a good player. I think he will get better.
And if they have to make a decision, if push comes to shove and they have to sell a Lacazette to fund a couple moves for some promising youngsters, I think that is something they should do. Right, moving on to Leeds then, and I've gone A. Come on, Bielsa's boys. Finished 9th in the Premier League on 59 points. The best points tally by a promoted side in 20 years. Joe, give us your grade.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to sort of Man United level. I probably would give... Did I give Man United an A? I would probably give... Leeds an A-, sort of very similar territory, to be honest with you. I do think they've been incredible to watch throughout the course of the season. Maybe one of the best teams in the league to watch in terms of entertainment factor. Obviously, the purchase of Rafinha gets better every single time you watch him. Bamford's been able to step up. I think Bielsa is an absolute genius, to be honest with you. It looks like he's going to sign that 1-year contract extension, which is a huge positive for them. I'll go A- sort of territory.
Yeah, I reckon you're just going to echo our sentiments, Zach. Don't want to put words in your mouth, but we're 26 minutes deep. I'm throwing you over to Everton, who, of course, got smashed by Manchester City in the final day of the season. So, not a lot of feel-good in match week 38. But what would you give him, big man?
It's been a bit patchy this season for them. They've had really bright parts. I mean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, 16 goals in the league is very good, all things considered. But I'd say about a C because... Yeah, they've especially towards the end of the season, they've not been so good. There were patches where they looked like they were real contenders for trying to battle in that get into that battle of the top 4 and kind of top 6 kind of race as kind of like West Ham were a part of it, and so Aston Villa at one point. But then it's kind of dropped off, and I guess players that kind of started quite well, like James Rodriguez and Alan, are kind of towards like midway on through the season there have been injuries as well. That should be said. But yeah, they didn't quite kick on. But then other players like Ben Godfrey was like a fantastic signing. So they've been ups and downs, and that's why I think like a C. They've passed. But they wouldn't be too happy with themselves, I reckon.
I think you've been kind there. I think
I'd go C-. C-. What about you, Tomlinson?
I think I'd be putting them in and around the D territory. I think that's a really disappointing season for Everton.
Yeah, I mean, come the end of the season, they did look significantly worse than the sides around them, and their attack just fell off a cliff, didn't it? 10.5 shots per 90, ranked them 15th over the course of the season. They became a very tough watch. Like
if they can't finish above 10th with Carlo Ancelotti in charge, James Rodriguez in the side, Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring 16 goals, and the signing of Ben Godfrey, who's been a revelation, then I'm seriously worried for Everton.
Yeah, but they weren't that far off points-wise, were they, from a more respectable finish. I think if James Rodriguez had stayed fit, huge if, given his fitness record, I was actually quite impressed they got 24 appearances out of him, then they're a much better side. But let's move on to Aston Villa then, who finished 20 points better off than last campaign, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably more of like a C territory, I think, for me, Aston Villa. And it probably would have been higher had that sort of period without Jack Grealish happened, where they kind of fell off a little bit. But generally very satisfactory given how close they were to relegation. Obviously, goal line technology kept them up basically last year, didn't it? So I think I'll go for C. I think 11th Villa fans will be pretty happy with, even though they have to keep Grealish because they're so much different without him.
Yeah. Oh wow, the rain I think is practically going to come through my roof in a minute, but we're gonna move on. Newcastle 12th. Zach, how did they finish 12th? Absolute frauds. That's result. A 2-0 victory against Fulham. What would you give them, big man?
High D, maybe a C- at best. But yeah, like they have played some turgid football, and about five weeks ago looked ready for the drop. I mean, I guess some credit has to go to Steve Bruce for the past couple of weeks and getting them put back to where
I think
they
Joe
are.
Willock gets most of the credit.
Yeah,
doesn't he?
you know what? Yeah, Joe Willock can get an A. Joe Willock can get an A, and then and Newcastle can get a D. Yeah, I how they've survived the drop, I do not know. Honestly,
I think Joe Willock
do
became the
not know.
first under-23 player to score in 7 consecutive games, and then he finished the season with an 8th one. So he's a record breaker in a unbelievably boring Newcastle side. I agree. I think C/D. C would be generous, but I feel like I beat up on them the whole season only for them to finish 12th.
I think C's perfectly acceptable. Like I think C, maybe even C+. I think
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, man. I think
Zach's gone D. You've gone. Should we settle on a flat C?
I think for Newcastle, who we were all tipping to be in around that relegation zone, which they were for the majority of the season, but we've got to take it on a season-wide basis.
Okay.
Right, I'm not having
To
this.
finish 12th, I think it's very, very impressive. And I
think we're now
I agree we're
now
not
getting to the
convinced
point,
by
obviously.
Bruce. I agree we're not convinced by Bruce, and Willock will not be able to go on a permanent because he'll be an expensive player, and next season will be a bit of a mess. But I think to finish 12th, CC plus for me.
At Football Daily, we've always tried to look past the league rankings as a representation of quality, of merit. And look, they've done well to avoid the drop. I will give them that, but they are not the 12th best side in the Premier League. I think if they keep Bruce, they will be battling relegation once more. Although, who knows? Who knows who we'd purchase with a bit of money, with a bit of backing, come the summer. I think Joe Willock's probably priced himself out of a move now. But if Arsenal can get 20 mil for him, I'd snap their hands off, despite that little purple patch he's endured at St James's. But okay, all right, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one. Wolves, Zach, what are you saying?
Average, yeah, average. C minus. Like they've had bright parts throughout the season. Pedro Neto looks like a really fantastic player. Podence looks really good. Obviously, had the injury to Jimenez that really shook them. They're now sacked Nuno, so God knows who comes in after that. Maybe
Didn't sack
maybe
him. They left
Fonseca.
mutual terms. He agreed. He wanted to
mutual
leave. I
terms,
think.
sure. Maybe Fonseca comes in or something. I don't know. But yeah, like. They probably are the 13th best side in the league, if I'm being quite honest. They probably finished exactly where you'd expect them to be after watching them this season. And as I said, they've dealt with obviously Jimenez getting injured was such a big blow for them, and relying so much on the youngster who
Fabio Silva.
Fabio Silva, yeah, they relied on him, and he's had an okay first season. So yeah, I think D, low C is where I put them.
I think it's got to be a D. They can't be any worse than Newcastle. They've been as bad a watch at times. 14 points in 6th place is worse off than last campaign, despite trying to play, more expansive brand of football. I think it's a huge, like you said, Zach, huge question who they turn to after Nuno. Paulo Fonseca is quite an interesting shout. Didn't even think about that. But yeah, they've got to match the talent in that squad to anyone that comes in. Haven't they? Crystal Palace, Joe. Let's fly through these last 6.
Worried about Crystal Palace next season. Very worried about Crystal Palace without Roy Hodgson. They've got to get that managerial appointment right, and they've got a lot of players out of contract in what is already quite an average squad, bar a couple of very, very bright stars. I think, D, Crystal Palace. Don't really think there's much else to be said there.
I think they've essentially survived once again with a championship squad. A couple of excellent components in there. Eze's better than the championship. Zaha is, of course. Benteke's had a little renaissance after 3 years in the wilderness. I'm going to give Benteke a B. Hit double digits for the first time in 4 years.
Wow.
But yeah, 16 players out of contract. It's looking quite bleak for them. Again, got to get that manager right. If they're going to be more progressive, they're going to have to buy more, better players, aren't they? Let's move on. 15th place, Zach. Southampton. Where are we sticking these? I feel like all these teams are in and around the same area.
Yeah, I think a D for Southampton, maybe a D plus. Like again, they had good patches. They especially towards kind of the start of the season, but then it went downhill. Obviously losing 9-0 or 9-1 again,
9-1.
Really rough, and then obviously it just not going too well. They made it to the FA Cup semi-final, which I'm sure they were buzzing about. Obviously didn't make it to the final. They're going to have an interesting summer. I don't quite know what they're going to do. Obviously, they don't have the biggest budget in the world. Can they keep hold of Hassan Hutel if maybe someone else comes? I don't even think maybe him going to Spurs. Who knows at this rate? So yeah, it's not been amazing. I'm sure every Southampton fan won't say it's been a particularly great season, but yeah, again they've also had injuries that they've dealt with, but every club have. So yeah, but their reliance on like Danny Ings is sometimes.
I worry for Southampton as well next season, man. Really, like I think the owners have got to get this summer right. The fans are reaching breaking point there. I think Danny Ings will leave. Can't see them being able to keep hold of him. 1 year left on his contract. Ryan Bertrand's gone. I think this has been a bit of a disappointment of a season with Southampton. I think D+ is very kind. I think maybe D- for me.
Yeah, I think I'll probably go D- as well. The project has become less clearer, hasn't it? And the owner's commitment has become a little bit muddy as well. So who knows? Because teams around them let's move on to Brighton. Have a much clearer project, let's say, and you can see them improving. Whereas with Southampton, perhaps not so much, or that'd be more out of kilter with what we've seen in recent weeks. I mean, we don't like I said prior, we don't like letting league position dictate our grade or our outlook on a team too much on this show, because the league table does lie. Don't let people tell you otherwise. And we have been banging on about I've been banging on about how unlucky Brighton have been all season. So I want to be consistent with Graham Potter's men. I'm going to give them a C. And, they might lose Potter in the summer. Expected points still has them above Leicester. But I think people will just lose their faith with that metric if we hammer home that too much.
Also, expected points. I did read the other day an interesting thing. I personally don't know enough about expected points, but somebody did say to me the other day when I said Brighton are flying on expected points, they said, well, they would be, because they go behind in a lot of games, and the expected points doesn't take into account the context of expected goals. It just, if they're flying everything forward in the last 5 minutes, could rack up 2 expected goals after struggling for the rest of the game. So it doesn't take context into it, does it?
It doesn't take game state into play, of course. I don't think they've actually chased that many fixtures, though, would be my retort to that. I think they have surrendered the most leads in the Premier League, haven't they? They've been rubbish at guarding leads. So I do get what they're saying, but in the context of Brighton, maybe that doesn't hold up so much. It's not a great metric. We just use it to kind of give people a rough idea, don't we? A rough overview. It's not one of my favourites. It's a bit vague.
So what are you giving them a C?
But still, I think Brighton deserve, on a balance of play. I think we've been unlucky. I think they should have probably finished mid-table, which would have qualified them for a C.
I think.
Did I just say we?
You said we.
There. Come on.
He's converted.
I think if I gave Newcastle a C+, I'll have to give Brighton. I think I'll give Brighton a C- then.
You're ranking them below Newcastle. I've lost.
Mate, Newcastle finished 12th. Brighton finished 16th.
Unbelievable. Right, let's just move on. We're 38 minutes in. This is just an episode of Sunday Vibes, and I could now talk about Brighton for 10 minutes. Right, Burnley. Zach, come on, put me out of my misery.
D-, maybe high E, not really. I mean, there's only so much you can talk about Burnley. They've not been great, but all things considered, obviously they don't have the biggest budget and everything. Then they've survived for another year. Like Sean Dyche seems to always just about make it. And there's a thing about Burnley. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're so against how the Premier League is becoming that's why I like them, and they're still Route 1 at times. Get it to Chris Wood, and they've had caused some shock results this year, but if they lost Sean Dyche and some of them, Jesus Christ. But yeah, I'd say an E, maybe a low D.
I reckon a low D, because they only spent 990k this summer, Tomlinson.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think low D, and obviously shout out to Chris Wood. Just keeps doing it, doesn't it? 12 goals for the season. Yeah. He's sensational for a team around that sort of position.
They'll be absolutely screwed with that. And I think Mattia Vidra is their second top goal scorer on 3, right? So they've been absolutely.
He's got 6 Vidra. He's got 6 Vidra, but yeah.
It's been Chelsea's second top goal scorer, mate.
6. I must have scored in recent weeks then, Vidra. Anyway, right, let's do Fulham, West Brom, Sheffield United as a little trio. Quick fire, because of course, very limited given it the fact they got relegated. I have gone EFF. Joe, what about you?
I agree with that. EFF. I think West Brom definitely the best of those three. Fulham, sorry, definitely the best of those three. Play the best football. Got a lot of players that are going to stay in the division. Fulham E, West Brom F, Sheffield United U. Do you ever used to get them U grades where it don't even count as a season?
Yeah, I did Chinese studies for a year, mate. I saw plenty of U's. Yeah, I do think I'd like to say with Fulham as well, they have the youngest squad in the Premier League, so there is a fair amount of bounce back ability there, but there's also a fair amount of talent on loan. Anderson is probably too good to play in the Championship, isn't he? Lemina's had a limited impact anyway, and Ola Reina might fancy making his move permanent from Torino. If they can keep that squad together, if they can keep Scott Parker, which of course hangs in the balance as well, because I can definitely see him going to Tottenham, which is very reminiscent of the early noughties. Then maybe not so good for Fulham. Anything to add on West Brom or Sheffield United, Zach?
Oh, mate, they can get in the Championship and not see them for a few years. You know how happy I am that Sam Allardyce doesn't have that stupid record anymore of taking over a team and not being relegated. And you see how sad he was? Good, mate. I'm happy.
You horrible bastard.
Oh, I hate Sam Allardyce.
Wow.
I hate a strong word.
Sam Allardyce, he seems like a really nice guy, Sam Allardyce.
No.
Elicited a tirade of swearing at the end of this show. Poor old James will have to work overtime on the old bleeps there. What I will say about West Brom is I've got nothing really to add about Sheffield United other than shout out McGoldrick for putting up 8 goals.
Pereira.
At least they can sell Pereira,
yeah.
They can sell Pereira for 4 times what they bought him for, and if they reinvest it wisely, make a good fist of it next season. Anything to add, Joe, on West Brom or Sheffield United?
No.
That's about right.
Okay, let us know all your rankings in the comments below. 1 to 20 if you're committed, or just give us, top 10, top 6, whatever you're most bothered about, whatever applies to your side. Okay, what have we got to plug after this show, Joe? If someone's made it, 42 and 2 seconds through winners and losers.
Why not go back and watch We Need to Talk from Friday, where I look back at our pre-season predictions. There's some interesting shouts in there.
Yeah, I chaired that episode, which meant I didn't make that many predictions, which I'm quite glad about looking back. Zachary, what are you saying?
Why not come over to Snapchat as well after that and check out our content on there?
Cool. All right. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and we'll be doing transfer winners and losers like we normally do from here on in. So give us your suggestions to really interrogate in the comments. And we'll catch you next time. Bye.